another episode of Stay Hot. I'm Blaiden Kirk, joined as always by my two favorite co-hosts of all time, Matthew Sponhour and Theo Ash. And today we've been doing these top 10 position rankings, but today we decided to change it up just a little bit and do a draft of the best defensive backs in the NFL. So according to our poll on Twitter, Matt has the first pick. Matt, do you have a question?
I do. Are we doing the best secondary players, or are we building a secondary?
That's a good question. I think we're building a secondary.
Yes, right? Because that's what
I think we're building a secondary.
Okay,
corner
good.
1, corner 2, safeties.
And then a guy in the slot, I figure.
Yeah, so 5 guys.
Okay, so we'll each do that, and I'm assuming we're going to go in a snake pattern.
I think that's probably the best way to do it.
Nice.
That is a good clarification, Matt. So that is what we're doing today. We're drafting a whole secondary to try and give an idea of how we would rank these players without necessarily doing a top 10 list. And of course, we'll talk about the NBA Finals just a little bit. But before we get into to that, Matt, Theo, how are you guys doing on this beautiful Wednesday evening?
I'm doing pretty well. Not too much has happened to me. Just hanging out, I guess. I got a haircut, and at the haircut place, I asked for a mullet, and then they were like, "You already have a mullet," and then I was like, "Oh," and then they just gave me a trim. I got rejected.
This is why I have such a problem saying anything to my hairstylist. I have one guy, and he knows what's up, and they'll be like, "What do you want?" I'll be like, "I don't know. You tell me."
Same as usual.
I've had the same barber since I was 3, man. If I ever have to get a new barber, I think I would just never get my hair cut again.
Yeah. If my guy moves out of the city or something, we're going bald. I'm not gonna lie to you, man. I can't do it.
You have the same barber, Blaiden, even though you have moved out of your city.
I mean, my barber is still a 15-minute drive away.
Oh, okay.
Then yeah, I mean, so I grew up in the suburbs, and I just moved to the city.
But you also went to school an hour and a half, 2 hours away.
Yeah, and I would come home to get my hair cut.
Fair enough.
But I would also
you
go
you got a guy. I get it. 2 hours would be no.
I've also
no
gone 4, 5, 6 months without haircuts. If I especially during COVID, it was bad.
2 months and it starts getting bleak. The hat becomes even more of a necessity like it is currently. Yeah. I actually need to cut badly. I'm doing very bad though, for the record.
Oh no.
Did not get the house that I wanted to get, unfortunately. So that's a bummer. And honestly, we're kind of in a mode where we're waiting for more options. House-wise, there isn't anything really good. And then Theo is apparently planning a video where he makes fun of me and says terrible things about me.
Yeah, and then I beat you in Madden, and
and then you beat me in Madden. So
I am planning that video. It's going to be a banger.
Yeah, so haven't been able to feel my face all day. It's fine. I'm really excited to thank you guys for voting me first for the draft so I can get my favorite player. We're taking that
we all know how that's gonna go. I mean, we might as well just get into the draft then. We might as well just skip Matt's first pick because we already know that it's gonna be.
I don't even think it's crazy is the thing. I mean, it is going to be Sauce Gardner with the first overall pick. I think he's the best corner in the NFL. I really don't care about I think people are kind of looking. You go online and you start debating this. I'm not even mad at people. If you're a Broncos fan and you're like, Surtain is better. You're a Bears fan and you're like, Jalen Johnson's better. It's you have to do that, right? As a fan, you're obligated. If you have a guy who's got a case, you got to do it. But I think Sauce back-to-back first-team All-Pros speaks highly of him. I like more physical corners. Sauce is that. He's on the number 1 assignment all the time. I mean, you guys know about him. And I don't really I guess buy into the idea that because Jalen Johnson maybe had let up 30 less yards last year or something, or let up a passer rating that was 2 or 3 points better, that's getting that into the statistics in any given year. I don't know if he's ahead again next year. Okay. I start to see it. But I think when they're neck and neck like that, I'm not that concerned about the numbers. And I appreciate that Sauce has done it 2 years in a row. And I think he matches up well with a lot of different guys because of his length, but he's also really quick. So, and he went to my college, so I'm going Sauce at 1.
Yeah, I think he was pretty locked down in press man in college, came to the NFL, didn't quite play so much of it. It's a lot of zone in New York with the Jets. Saleh likes to play that cover 3, and he locks down his side of the field. We just talked about him in the awards predictions episode, and I had him as my potential defensive player of the year because his first year in the league, he was targeted 15% of the time, one of the lowest marks in the league. When he was targeted, he made a play on the ball 23% of the time, highest mark in his division, less than a yard per coverage snap allowed, always a good mark to be at. Coverage EPA when targeted, horrible, like for the offense, that is. It's always a tight window when you're throwing to him because of his length and the way he's able to follow guys around. He has the agility of a much smaller player. And then I think at the catch point, he's about as good as it gets, knowing how to time it right and get a big long arm in there. And then people call him DPI boy or whatever, but he really just knows how to skirt that line.
He just doesn't get those called on him ever, man. I mean, he's as locked down as you can get, and he can fit pretty much any scheme. I feel like whatever you want to do, he can do. So as I'm building out my secondary here, take just the cornerback 1 who can do whatever, and then see what falls to me and can do whatever. Keep the flexibility.
Yeah, I mean, you take best player. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of, I think the strategy is just take the best players you can.
I have a little bit of strategy planned, me personally. I don't know if you guys do. I have a teeny amount of strategy.
I mean, I've got it a little tough here because Theo has the second pick according to the Twitter poll, which that means I'm probably going to lose out on the guy that I want. But
it's a tough call between Surtain, and I like Kyle Hamilton a lot as well. Those are kind of the two that I debate between. Depends on, I guess, how you kind of want to build things out, what you value. I think, though, Surtain is a bit more scheme independent. I think that I'm going to go with him.
Yep.
Because he's got all the stuff that Sauce Gardner has got in terms of listing off the positives. He's tall for the position, long, yet the springiness that he possesses is unreal. The closing speed and burst that he possesses is unreal. Like, if you do get a step on him, he's going to close that space in a hurry. He's had some unreal track downs from across the field to make tackles. And he's so thick that, like, he's a bit burlier than Sauce Gardner is. It's really impossible to push him around at all. He was, I think, Nick Saban's one of his finest players in the history of Alabama secondary play, and came into the NFL and really didn't skip a beat. I think the main difference between Surtain and Sauce, and maybe why Surtain hasn't had some of the charting numbers that other guys have had, is he has not played with like a Quinnen Williams. He has not played with the linebacking core that the Jets have, right? Or DJ Reed on the other side of him. He's really far and away the crown jewel of really the Denver Broncos entire team. And I do feel like it's harder to put up great numbers when the teammates around you aren't as good. So I think that Sauce has the charting numbers that Surtain has. I would rank Sauce ahead of Surtain. I'd pick him number 1, 2. But Surtain is elite as well, and he is really carrying that entire defense on his back.
He is. You notice when the Broncos were struggling last year, the one guy who you didn't see get a whole lot of blame was Pat Surtain.
Right, and when they turned it around, it was because they can build doubles on everybody else and leave Surtain one-on-one, right? Like in their zones. They have some hybrid coverages where he's locked on the X receiver and then everybody else is kind of in a zone. And when Surtain is that locked up ISO'd guy, they're looking somewhere else. And That's true in man and zone coverage. If there's some play where there's like a quick out to his side and he's playing off, a lot of the time that's the easy pass to go complete, but teams will turn it down because he closes on it and will really hit you in a hurry. So you just don't want anything to do with Pat Surtain on a typical drop back. But the rest of the defense, he's been burned a little bit more than Sauce Gardner has over the last 2 years. I'll say that. So I am going with Surtain. I love Kyle Hamilton, but I don't know. I guess I think Surtain is just as good, and I think with Kyle Hamilton, I
would have taken Surtain if I had the second pick. That would have been my choice.
I think a big part of Kyle Hamilton's game is blitzing and having Roquan Smith to cover for a defensive back getting taken out of coverage is a big part of the Ravens scheme, and we're not really drafting tight ends. So independent of scheme and entire team, I think Surtain is a bit more friendly for everything. And Kyle Hamilton is a real unicorn and pretty special, but I'll go with Surtain here.
Well, I am going to take Kyle Hamilton with the third pick here because I have back-to-back picks, first of all. But Kyle Hamilton, he's the total Swiss Army knife. So at the very least, I'm setting myself up so that, if things don't fall my way 100%, I know I can I don't have to put him at high safety. I could put him in the slot if I need to, and I can kind of move him around it in a lot of different ways. So his versatility kind of becomes an asset for me here. The tricky thing is picking another safety right off the bat or picking a corner. I feel like the obvious choice is, you guys have both taken some lockdown corners. So trying to match you in that regard would be pretty important. I'm thinking Stingley, or I'm thinking taking Jesse Bates and just having a total roof on top at the safety duo there. And then if I get another safety, I can move Hamilton to the slot.
That's very fair.
So that's kind of the dilemma I'm facing right now. I think I don't want to risk not getting a really good corner, a really good lockdown corner. So I do think I am going to take Stingley. And I'll just risk, over Jalen Johnson. I think Stingley's really good.
He was pretty unbelievable the second half of last season.
He was really unbelievable. And I still can't get over how poorly utilized he was in his rookie season. And I think that's kind of what sets him back a little bit right now. But I do think that Stingley is going to be really good. He was really good at the end of last year. I think he's going to be really good going forward.
Yeah, he was a little bit slower out the gate than I expected, considering his college tape. I know he was banged up, but he had such an amazing freshman year. And then his sophomore year, I thought his tape was just as good, if not better. Oh. And he was just banged up, right? So I was like, okay, just be healthy and you'll be great. But in the games that he played his rookie year, I was starting to get kind of concerned. I remember Mike Williams had a dominant game against him.
But how many times did they just have him in a hard flat or a cloud zone?
A lot. But when he was doing other things, I don't know. I was like, I'm not quite sure if he's going to live up to billing. And of course, Sauce was so good. But in the second half of last year, but in the second half of last season, I thought he looked pretty special. The amount of reps that he had as an invert cover 2 deep player, and he'd close the space on someone going up the seam and pick it off. He had a couple of those plays that were just holy shit. How did you cover that much ground?
He's a really special athlete. So I guess I'm just riding on versatility and traits right now. But those will be my first two, Hamilton and Stingley.
Fair enough. That brings it back to you, Theo.
Man, I think I'm going to take Trent McDuffie.
I thought about McDuffie too. Yeah.
Yeah, McDuffie's not a bad choice at all.
I feel like a lot of these corners have been really banged up. That was my struggle. Like Jalen Ramsey banged up, Denzel Ward
Yeah.
consistently banged up, Derek
I
Stingley
know what to tell
massive injury issues over the course of his career, Marlon Humphrey, Jair Alexander. So there is a lot of that when it comes to corners. Is like if you take them, how much are they going to be healthy? It's a very snake bitten position right now. And McDuffie has been pretty healthy over the course of his career. And then, of course, he's been, well, I guess he only played 11 games his rookie year. I don't remember exactly what injury that was, but at least we saw him for 16 last season, which is not the case for
Yeah.
a lot of players. And
he
was
was
locked down.
really special.
He's also one of the best secondary players in the NFL. So you're good regardless.
Right. The injury stuff, maybe I just wanted to mention that all the different injuries that you've got, but him in the slot, it's just so dangerous. Even though he's a smaller player, you really can't push him around at all because you can push him and he'll just stick his foot in the ground and stay and burst right with you. Like he's difficult to OPI, that never gets called, into separation, and then you can't out agility him because he is just so twitchy. He makes great plays on the ball consistently. Like he can get his head around, or even when he can't, he reads people's eyes and gets a hand up, and just always seems to be in the right position. He was an All-Pro player last year from the slot, and I think that he was probably the second best player on the Chiefs defense outside of Chris Jones already. And there's some good ones, Bolton, L'Jarius Sneed, but McDuffie was a huge reason why they won that Super Bowl. He could have been Super Bowl MVP. I wouldn't have been mad. I thought he had an amazing game. And, I'm putting him in the slot next to Surtain and locking up that side of the field.
Okay, getting your slot player early. Yeah, Matt, you got 2 back-to-back.
Okay, I think my pick here is pretty easy with the first one. I'm going Jalen Johnson, who, I mean, I think was right up there with anybody last year. Good size, statistically was phenomenal, did a great job mirroring guys, but also has some ball hawking tendencies. Even though he didn't get targeted a ton, although a little bit more than Sauce, he came away with a decent number of picks, which I don't want to read too much into that, but I think it shows up when you watch him that I mean, this guy is one of the best in the NFL, and he plays the ball well, and that means something to me. So that gives me Sauce and Johnson as cornerback 1 and 2, and it makes it a very tough decision on where to go from here. My gut tells me just go with the guy who was maybe the best safety in the NFL last year in Antonio Winfield.
Antoine,
my fault. Antoine Winfield. But Jesse Bates is also such a ball hawk. And I wonder if the way to play it is you get a bunch of guys who are just so locked on that you can't throw to. I think I'll go Antoine Winfield.
Okay.
That's who I would have picked.
Yeah, he's got great range. He's just such a beast in coverage. Statistically, I think he had his best season last year. No.
Oh yeah. I mean, statistically,
a huge breakout for him. I think.
Yeah, I mean,
his season last year, statistically, the numbers are crazy. He had 6 forced fumbled. He's the king of the peanut punch as it stands today.
How many interceptions did he have? I know that Bates had a ton, but I also know that because Bryce threw 2 to him. maybe that's me. Bates is great, don't get me wrong, but maybe that's me in my head. When somebody plays good against your team, you're like, oh my god, that guy's got to be the GOAT.
Winfield had
3.
Yeah. And 6 forced fumbles.
6 forced fumbles is serious stuff.
I didn't realize he had that many. That's crazy.
He is the king peanut puncher in the league today. He picks his spots so well to hit it. He played like a vet coming into the league. In Minnesota, he was very pro ready. It's just that he's 5'9" or something like that. People wondered about maybe the athleticism and the ceiling with him. But it just doesn't really matter. I've seen him take a pass off the top of Michael Pittman's hat, even though he's way shorter than him. The tenacity with him when he tackles is great.
Yeah.
He rips at the ball, 3 picks last year, 6 sacks, and 12 passes defensed, and 6 tackles for loss. He received some Defensive Player of the Year votes last year in his first team All-Pro and missed the Pro Bowl.
We know that he was a joke, man.
Yeah, he did.
That's interesting. Well, it's interesting that happens in both the NFL and the NBA.
Yeah,
I'd say in the NBA it makes a little bit more sense though. I feel like because All Pro feels like you have to be like the best player at your position, and then Pro Bowl it's like can you be like top 6, whereas All Star's like 24 to 15.
But yeah, I think of Winfield as just the ultimate fireman. Like he is just the guy to if everything is going wrong in front of him, he's gonna take a great angle and make a tackle. And then he can make plays on the ball as well as anybody. I think that he's underrated, honestly, when people talk about safeties, even though I guess you called him maybe the best, but I know when he got paid, people are really like, oh, I don't know, best defensive back in the league.
He deserved
pretty much everything
he
that
deserved
you
that
want
contract,
a safety
man.
to do. I agree.
So I'm sitting with Sauce, Johnson, and Winfield. I'm feeling pretty good.
You should feel pretty good. Theo, you're sitting here with Surtain and McDuffie. Who are you taking with your third selection?
I'm going to take Minkah Fitzpatrick.
Ooh.
That is not a bad pick at all.
He is younger than I thought he was. He's only 27. I thought he was a bit older than that. But no, he didn't have his greatest season last year. He had 0 interceptions, 0 forced fumbles, but the year before that he had 6.
Am I crazy or was he playing banged up?
He was playing banged up, and he only played 10
lot.
games. He has, and that's the biggest issue with him is the injury proneness, and probably why he's getting taken at this point in this draft as opposed to maybe in the first round, because I think at times he's been pretty clearly the best safety in the league, but then in other times he's banged up, and PFF has had some really down seasons on him. That was 2021 before his All-Pro season in 2022. He was one of PFF's like lowest graded safeties, and that hurt his reputation a little bit. But I'm convinced it's because he was covering for so many of Devin Bush's mistakes. I think that Minkah's the smartest defensive back in the league. He makes reads that are kind of unheard of for other safeties. He's the closest thing we've got to like an Ed Reed in the game right now. In my opinion, it's just 10 games played last year, 15 the year before that, which was good. And then the year before that, PFF didn't like him. Year before that, All Pro. So it's gone All Pro bad, All Pro bad, at least in the eyes of the media. So he's due for another All Pro if this every other year thing keeps going.
Hold on.
And I just won't ever forget the way the way they traded for him, and I said a safety is not going to impact you like that, and then I just get burned by the positional value thing like I do every time. And it's actually that he like completely turned the Steelers season around that year and has basically turned their secondary around since then. So
when he's maybe the best playmaker defensive back that we've got. I completely agree. And there's games where he just completely
there's games where he has
massive plays. And
I think there's a very good argument to be had that he is at times more valuable than TJ Watt. I've seen Minkah take over games in ways that I have not seen Watt do.
They act like two legends can't coexist. Honestly, they both have their performances.
If the Browns had like an All-Pro caliber safety, I feel like
it's funny. It's funny you mentioned that because they do have an All-Pro caliber safety.
Yeah, I don't know.
Grant Delpit is not going to be my next pick. Don't worry.
Yeah, Minkah All-Pro 3 times since 2019. That's the last time.
Yeah, I took Kyle Hamilton with my first pick. And with my third pick, I take worse Kyle Hamilton.
Fair enough.
No, with
he needs a backup.
Right, exactly, just in case. No, I'm gonna take Bates now. I'm just gonna really secure that too high system, and then if I end up finding someone else, I'll move Hamilton down to the slot. But having Bates up top again, he had 6 picks last year. I mean, talk about range, going sideline to sideline, can he can really do everything for you as that high safety. So I'm very happy to have him there. I am now going to take my next corner, who I guess it's fair that he's going at this point, but I was worried that one of you might take Trayvon Diggs. Trevor Diggs.
Trevor.
I think that's interesting.
He was a big time ball hawk. Almost broke the interceptions record, and then everyone was worried that he was getting burned a bunch. And then he came out the following year, and teams didn't throw to him. He was almost never targeted. He was pretty locked down, and now he got hurt this past year. I think he's going to come back and have a really good year. Him and Bland, kind of that 1-2. But I think he's still really, really good. So I'm gonna take Trayvon Diggs, and that puts me with Kyle Hamilton and Jesse Bates at safety, and Derek Stingley and Trayvon Diggs at corner.
I mean, it's quite the ball hawking unit you've got.
We will get a lot of interceptions.
Yeah. But if I run a double move at you.
That's why I have Bates.
Oh, he'll bite on it too. He'll bite on it too.
Oh, don't worry. Once I get my final piece of the puzzle, you won't be laughing.
Oh.
But that's assuming you guys don't take him.
It's back to me then, right?
It is.
Who do you have right now?
So I'm very happy. I've got Surtain.
Yes.
I've got Trent McDuffie, and I've got Minkah Fitzpatrick. So I've got the greatest apex triangle of all time. If I can play some quarters with Surtain and Minkah, and then McDuffie in the flat, that's about as good as a trio as you can get. And then maybe I could go with a lockdown man cover guy on the other side. I'm trying to debate. There's two guys that I really like here. I like Jalen Ramsey.
Yeah.
And that's probably just who I'm going to go with. I think that Ramsey, he's been a bit inconsistent over the course of his career, as a lot of corners are, and he was banged up last year. But when he was playing last season, he had pretty much the best numbers of his career, I'd say, in the limited sample size that we got from him in Miami. He was at 17 targets the entire season on 242 coverage snaps. And it was a positive play when you targeted him less than 30% of the time, which is a pretty ridiculous number. Like 50% for most things is like an average number. Like half the time it's successful, half the time it's not. So to be at 30, it's pretty ridiculous. And his yards per coverage snap was charted as being at 0.2 yards per coverage snap. And again, a lot of people are about at a yard. His passer rating against him when he was targeted, according to Sports Info Solution, was 5. And his completion percentage when targeted was 35%. So even though Jalen Ramsey's a bit older and he's been hurt, and his 2022 season wasn't exactly a banner year, I do think that he has the track record and is coming off a season that warrants a pretty high selection in this draft. He won the Dolphins some games last season, despite the fact that he's getting a bit older, but he's still not that old.
Your team is going to be Mr. Glass coming up soon.
It's hard not to be with these corners.
It is hard not to.
Yeah.
Surtain hasn't gotten hurt that much, has he?
No, he hasn't. Sauce Gardner's missed one game in his last 5 seasons, by the way. Goat.
I know. He's cracked.
Goat.
He's cracked.
He's so good,
When
man.
was that?
5 seasons.
Yeah. Well, when was the last game?
He missed 1 this year, I believe.
Oh, okay.
He was bored.
And then I don't believe he's missed 1 before that. I don't think he ever missed 1 at Cincinnati. He didn't start
That's pretty crazy.
his true freshman year until like week 8.
Okay.
Mind you, on a defense that had like 4 other draft picks in the secondary. But enough about Sauce. I need a safety and I need a slot corner, and I've got 2 picks with Sauce, Jalen Johnson, and Winfield. I feel like I want somebody physical, strong, and run defense here. Just going to fly to the ball. You got to have that mix. A lot of safeties have been taken. I'm trying to think if I'm forgetting anybody very obvious before I go with who I'm going to go with. But I kind of like the combo. Okay, Winfield forced a lot of fumbles, right?
Mm.
I wanna force some more fumbles.
I know who you're gonna take now.
Oh, okay.
Javon Holland.
Yep, okay. That's right. Yeah. The other right. Peanut puncher, the other rip away guy.
My heart was pounding in my chest. I thought for sure you were gonna take my guy.
Nah, Del Pitt wasn't really on my radar, bro. Yeah, the Charles Tillman, when he played for the Panthers, used to be obviously amazing at that, and that moved me very much. And then all the Panthers were like kind of a little bit better. It was like the team chemistry went up for that back in their best season. That was special. So having dudes who can do that is really good. Holland obviously like does more than hold his own in coverage because he's got ridiculous range as well. But I really particularly like him for how he can get downhill and downfield. And I mean, Winfield can as well, but I feel like Sauce and Jalen Johnson, that's not really their forte. I don't view them as like super crazy run defense specialists. I know they're my outside corners. Sauce, I've always had kind of mixed feelings about it. I think when somebody gets hands on him and they're like a serious play, like he can get down there, but he tries, like he can sometimes, like he'll be aggressive towards the ball at least. But I guess I shouldn't be too worried about that. Yeah, I also Holland, I just think has a very good argument for being the best safety left.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. That's who I'd take. He was my ranked 4 guy.
But then that brings me to my slot corner. And the guy I want to take is not the guy that I should take if we want to post a graphic and I want to win the vote. Because, you know what I mean? But when we talk about somebody like, dude, I think Devon Witherspoon is like pretty darn good. Branch is also another very serious option, but Witherspoon, like what we saw from him in college, I felt like translated so well. Like I thought that, I don't know what the stats are, so maybe I'm way off on like what his coverage numbers looked like. But it feels like it was really good from all the times that I watched the Seahawks. And obviously, like, he is a playmaker. Like, he had several big hits. He gets downfield as well. And it's like, if we combine that with Holland and Winfield, I feel like that's so strong. And then I feel like Witherspoon, maybe if not now, but if we're talking going into next year, could he have a big breakout? I think so. I just really like how technical he is. And he's very, very quick. So I think we'll stick with the aggression. I'm going to go Devon Witherspoon, even if there's maybe a pick that would like be a bigger name, or maybe like on average, like considered a better player that maybe would be right. However, I will say this, Blaiden, Diggs would have been my pick for my slot corner. I would have had 2 lockdown guys, and then Diggs is what I would have gone
Diggs
for.
in the slot is crazy.
That would have been absolutely nasty work.
I'm running pin pull. I'm running.
We do not care, man.
Somehow. We are getting Diggs involved in the rush action.
The linebacker draft, man. I'll figure it out in the front 7.
So, I'm very excited for what's about to come my way. Theo, so we'll say, Matt, you have Sauce, Jalen Johnson, Antoine Winfield, Javon Holland, Devon Witherspoon. Theo, you have Pat Surtain, Trent McDuffie, Minkah Fitzpatrick, Jalen Ramsey. Who is your 5th selection?
I'm going to go with Jabril Peppers.
Interesting.
Stop.
I'm going with Jabril Peppers. He received an all-pro vote from my fake ballot last year. He was money last season. He's got to be the most physical safety in the league, pound for pound. You can put him and Minkah Fitzpatrick, to me. You can have McFadrick. You can have I don't know. I guess I'm playing. I'm trying to think of my scheme now that I've got all these guys picked. It doesn't really matter the scheme because it's like an all. Here's an all-star team.
The problem. The problem is that like the players that we're getting are way too good for it to even matter. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, well, what scheme would you run if you had Sauce Gardner and Jalen Johnson and Winfield? And like, okay, probably like whatever you wanted to do and it would work.
Just
right.
like single high man, like
nickel
blitz. Right.
Like I do like all the versatility that I've got though, because I think that Jabril Peppers can drop down into the slot or in the box. McDuffie can play in or out. We've got Ramsey who can play inside or out. So really, you could play pure matchup ball with whatever you wanted. And I think that, I think that Peppers just gives you so much juice against the run compared to the other defensive backs that are on the board. And man, he sets the tone. I need a tone setter, and that's what he is.
That's not.
I can tell. I picked Blaiden's guy.
No, you didn't. This is.
Oh, really?
Things
you were
could
looking
not,
so sad.
Things could. Oh no, I'm sad because like. You took Peppers over Branch, man. I think Branch would have been a great tone setter for you.
Yeah, I guess so. I just think of him as more of a nickel guy, and I already had that position.
I guess that's fair.
Kind of filled. This is like my box dude. Pure.
Okay.
He's like almost a linebacker, damn near. So. That's what I'm going with.
Okay. Well, this gives me a lot of flexibility. I could go Brian Branch. I'm not going to. I love Brian Branch. He's super versatile. I think he's super athletic, can fly all over the field. I could take. Actually, no, I couldn't take him, but I will give an honorable mention to Christian Gonzalez, who for locking up Tyreek Hill last year. I think if we do this next year, he has a very real shot to be on this draft. Yeah,
it's just he didn't play quite enough for it to be.
When he played like 4 games, I'm not going to draft him.
Witherspoon was banged up as well last year, if I remember. I don't think he played a full 17, but
no, but he probably played more than 4. So
I think so.
So those are some guys that I would like to think about. But the guy that I'm going to take led all safeties and interceptions last year, and I'm taking Geno Stone to round out my secondary. So I am going to lead the league in interceptions.
Wasn't he Marcus Williams' backup?
Yeah. He led all safeties and interceptions.
We're talking picks? We're judging by picks now?
Oh, brother.
Look, Geno Stone was pretty good last year.
Geno Stone was a dog last year.
He just came off the bench is all I'm saying.
All right. You got to start somewhere.
What contract did he get?
With the Bengals?
Yeah.
I do not know.
He got a little $6 million guaranteed.
Nothing
2
crazy.
2 years, $14 million overall.
Started from the bottom.
Hey, all I'm saying is think about it like this, right? My safety duo, we're running too high with Bates and Stone. And then I've got Hamilton in the slot with Stingley and Diggs on the outside.
Double move.
We're running zone, brother. Like
double. You can bite it. What do you mean? We're running zone. You can bite on a double move in zone.
Only if you're bad.
What's Diggs then?
This ain't 2021, man.
He's still known to bite on a double move. I'm also running it at you, little bro. We're running it.
That's why I got Kyle Hamilton.
Here, 45 PFF run defense grade. I'm not moved.
The PFF run defense grade.
That shit was below 50. He sucks at it. Don't watch this game against the Chargers.
All right, so the final teams, I wonder what these graphics are going to look pretty funny. Matt has Sauce Gardner, Jalen Johnson, Antoine Winfield, Javon Holland, Devon Witherspoon. Is it Devon or Devon?
I never can remember, and then I look it up, and then I know, and then I forget again.
And then I
think it's
forget.
Devin. I'm 90% sure it's Devin, actually.
Devin Witherspoon.
Yeah.
And then Theo, you have Pat Surtain, Trent McDuffie, Minka Fitzpatrick, Jalen Ramsey, Jabril Peppers. And then I have Kyle Hamilton, Derek Stingley, Jesse Bates, Trayvon Diggs, and Geno Stone.
Geno Stone is a polar bear, I'm afraid. I must say it.
You took Jabril Peppers, man.
Arlington resident, brother. It's not.
You're talking about polar bear in Arlington. You have Jabril Peppers. I don't like.
Jabril Peppers clears Geno Stone. He had a better year last year. Oh, yes.
Clears?
Oh, yes. Yes.
Clears is crazy.
Yes.
Bill Belichick merchant, I fear.
Merchant? What about Mike McDonald?
I can't even argue with that. But like, well, maybe Mike McDonald's my defensive coordinator. Can we pick our defensive coordinators?
There's no need to fight about this. I feel like mine won anyway. I think I got 2 fantastic corners. I think I got a 3rd fantastic corner and 2 wonderful safeties to go with them. And I'm hoping the people, when we tweet this out, will see it the same.
Yeah. They might.
I do agree with Theo that Geno Stone was a crazy pick, though. I won't lie.
All right, brother.
He did start 11 games last year, I should say. Like wasn't a complete bench player
I see
or anything,
your vision.
He did have.
I think you got 2 into I need interceptions mode, too much ball hawk mode, and that was my game plan as well. Like I was like, I'm gonna get interceptions, but it didn't work out like that.
It worked out like that for me.
I said we got physical.
You said we're getting physical.
He did play 82% of the defensive snaps, so that's not nothing at all. Like I shouldn't say that he just came off the bench or anything, but Marcus Williams, I'm taking him before Geno Stone, and that's on God.
I'm taking Brian Branch before Jabril Peppers.
I don't need
this is because you
Google Jabril Peppers hit versus Raiders, and then come back to me.
I think I know what play you're talking about. I think I know what play you're talking.
I think Peppers is a baller, and I think you're still scarred or biased, or I don't know what the word is, from his Browns tenure where he would line up
50 yards behind the. Yeah.
Yeah, dude.
Hey, as long as no one took Andrew Sendejo, we're all good.
No, I can't believe I'm a little hurt that no one took Jair. I'm a little hurt that no one took AJ Terrell. He was the other guy I was debating.
I thought about AJ Terrell too. But here's the thing: AJ Terrell has too much bad luck at the catch point. Like
he doesn't get his head around it. It is his fatal flaw. Him and Tyson Campbell would be so good if they could get their head around. He's always in
perfect position, and then he just gets caught on. I'm like, dog, I can't.
It's way more good than bad with him, though. He doesn't get his head around, so he doesn't really have the production on the ball that some other dudes have, but I love AJ Terrell.
Yeah.
Branch going on pick sucks, though. He rules.
Branch does rule. If someone had taken Stone, I would have taken Branch. So
I think I would have taken Branch at safety before Stone, too.
Before Stone? Well, if I would have taken Branch, I would have moved Branch into the slot and put Hamilton back.
If you see this tweet, when we tweet this out, you definitely should comment like "No Branch is crazy" and then a skull emoji or possibly a heartbreak emoji, and you can.
Who else are the crazy guys that went undrafted? Denzel Ward, maybe.
Ward, I thought about. Ward is valid. Ward is valid.
Whoa, Matt! Why are we laughing?
That is just a crazy transition. Oh, who else should have been drafted? Definitely for sure.
Just laughing at Denzel Ward is crazy.
Denzel Ward is nice.
He's a great player. He's a great player. I just
from the 49ers.
Buckeyes head, I gotta respect.
But anyway, that's the DB draft instead of the top 10. You can.
Yes.
It basically functions as a top 10 DBs, but
when it comes to your feet, eBay's got your back, because with eBay's authenticity guarantee, real experts are checking your sneakers, every stitch down to the sole. Me personally, I'm a big fan of a classic Air Force or maybe a nice suede or leather boot, but whatever it is that you're adding to the lineup next, head to eBay. From the drop to your doorstep, eBay does not play with your sneaker game. Just look for that blue check mark. So ensure your next purchase is the real deal. Visit ebay.com for terms.
We still got a couple minutes left in this episode. And since the last time we recorded, the NBA Finals came to an end. And the Boston Celtics lifted banner number 18. They defeated the Dallas Mavericks.
Yes.
And I guess now that the NBA season is over,
fans, man.
they get it all.
Did you guys end up seeing how long the drought was? It was like 6 years since Boston's last championship, and their total, and the longest stretch they've ever gone without a championship as a city is 16 years, and the second longest is 15. The only decade where they haven't had a title is the 90s.
Pretty good. Yeah, I mean, they just win everything. I don't know why. I guess it's just because, I don't know. I don't know why they win anything. They just got lucky. Lucky, yeah. But yeah, they won it. They beat Luka, Tatum, and Jaylen Brown. As much as they get shit on Twitter, especially Tatum, as they say, what are they gonna say now? So Matt, what are you gonna say?
I don't know. I think I just don't hate the Celtics like other people, to be honest with you. I just don't, and maybe that's because my team isn't any good and in the Eastern Conference. And if I was like a 76ers fan or a Heat fan and I was going to war with them, like, I'd get it. But I just don't have like that much against them. And I also just like don't have that big of a problem with Tatum. I understand there's a lot of people who say like, I guess what would have made this annoying is if like Tatum had won Finals MVP and he'd played a little bit better, and then all of a sudden people would have been talking about him like, oh, he's got to be top 3 now because he just won Finals MVP. But because he didn't play well, we kind of avoided that for the most part. I mean, I guess there's a few people saying that, but like he's somewhere in between. Like clearly he like contributed well to this championship and deserves credit. But we also don't have to sit here and pretend that he's like better than Jokic or anything or on Jokic's level whatsoever.
Yeah,
which is fine by me. I'm just my big takeaway from it all, like the number one thing that came to mind to me was that this Celtics team, I think, is the most dominant or the best champion since those Warriors teams, which I think is fair to say. Them missing Porzingis and still winning a title in the finals is completely crazy. Porzingis hardly played the first 2 games, and people were talking about him like he was the most valuable player that the Celtics had, that he was going to win Finals MVP. And I think there is absolutely a very real chance that he would have won Finals MVP if he had been able to play like 35 minutes a night. Because it kind of looked like Dallas just had no answer for him getting a mismatch at all, and he was just money from the mid-range, right?
Yeah, and in the post, like his defensive highlights from the finals are ridiculous.
And to go, I mean, no disrespect at all whatsoever to Al Horford, who I thought played a really strong series considering his age, and the fact that he was able to go out there and not be a total turnstile on defense while still spacing it out. Not a lot of 38-year-old centers are doing that. Not a lot of 38-year-old centers are holding up, but he had his fair share of plays. However, you go back and look at the history of NBA champions and how many of them were missing like a core player and then were able to get over it in the finals. It's almost completely unheard of to be missing a player that important, to be missing arguably your third most important player and to get away with it. And to win in 5, for it to not even really be close. I know he did play a couple, but even when he came back in game 5, like he was really laboring. He really shouldn't have been out there.
He stayed in the drop, right? Like you could tell right away that he was asked to close out on a 3 and he just kind of stayed there and they drilled it in his face. It's like, oh boy. But then it just didn't matter. No, it didn't matter at all. Do you think they'll repeat?
Here's what the flip side to that is, okay, so if the Celtics were able to win a title with Porzingis hurt. How could they lose? Because they just got it done with a big injury. So the big injury, they're bringing pretty much everybody back, right? I haven't checked their cap sheet, but I'm sure anybody they're not is replaceable because I know their top 5 are still going to be there despite Derek White being on a contract year. The problem is that I do think if next year they have an injury, there's a very real chance that they could play somebody who would be better at exposing it or would put up a better fight. Like if they went up against a healthy Milwaukee team and all of a sudden Porzingis went out, I think that would be a humongous problem. I think the lack of rim defense would be a disaster, against Giannis, or same thing against like a healthy 76ers team. We'll see how they shape out. Or my first thought was, okay, you won a ring and Porzingis was banged up and he wasn't able to play right. Fair enough. Like all the credit in the world. If that had been Dallas, or not Dallas, if that had been Denver, I don't know what they would have done against Jokic. I mean, I don't know what you ever do against him, but Horford could ever survive. And you had to give so much help, and it could have ended completely differently. I do think Denver matches up better with them. I don't want to say that they're not going to, and I think there's a real case that maybe they have a better chance of repeating than any champion since the Warriors won it last, right? But I also think that most years it's kind of felt like the champion might repeat. I mean, it definitely felt like the Lakers weren't going to get any worse. The Bucks kind of felt like a super special run, but even then I remember picking them the next year. I thought they were still pretty great. I guess they had more apparent flaws, and certainly the Celtics team is better than that Bucks team, I think. But even then it was like, okay, well, Giannis is the best player in the world. Like, who's going to stop him? The Warriors, I thought they were going to be pretty great again. Maybe I didn't think they were going to repeat, but I definitely thought the Nuggets were going to be back in the finals at least. And then they just kind of got straight up beat. I mean, it wasn't even an injury thing. With the Bucks, it was an injury thing. They did get banged up, I believe, the next year. So this is all to say, the odds are definitely lower than people think, but I think they're higher than anybody in a while. That's where I stand on it. And you could always be more injured than they were this year. You could always lose like Holiday or something, or Derek White could go down, or
right.
Yeah, it's and they did go 16-3 in this run, which is just crazy.
I just don't know who in the East I'm picking to go over them at all. Like the West is just such a crapshoot at this point. Like this entire West felt like anyone could have come out of it. Like the Timberwolves seemed like a lock to be the best team after they beat the Nuggets, because the Nuggets seemed like a lock to make it out. Like everybody had the Nuggets in the finals, and then the Timberwolves do it, and you're like, oh man, the Timberwolves really beat the Nuggets. They're the ones this year, and then they lose to the Mavs so easily, and then the Mavs lose to the Celtics so easily. It's like, okay, the entire Western Conference just feels like they're on a very similar tier, and anything could have happened. Maybe the Thunder put it all together next year. I could see that happening. But
that's the Thunder I predicted the Thunder to be the next new team to win a championship. That's my take right now. Maybe the Celtics repeat. Maybe the Nuggets get it next year. But I think the next time it's kind of like a fresh champ. It'll be them. There's other contenders, obviously, but I think it'll be them. That's my call. Yeah, the thing about the Celtics, though, is like I'm sitting here and I'm saying, okay, well, the injury luck could go against them. Keep in mind, Porzingis being healthy for a playoff run would be very lucky. No other team, I think, would have been able to get away with that Porzingis trade because they probably would have needed Porzingis in a way that the Celtics didn't. And Porzingis is, games played history is a disaster. Like, it's really bad. This is always going to be, something you're dealing with.
He hardly ever plays 7 games in a row at any point.
Although he put together, I feel like, a good number of regular season games this year. Maybe I'm totally
I think
off.
he did. I heard some stat that even though he put together like a good amount of games this year, I don't know if he got to 7 in a row. Although I could just be talking out of my ass. I'm a bad NBA analyst in that way.
He would play 6 games and then he would miss 1, then 6 more and then miss 1.
Something like that. I don't know.
He played 57, which is like good, and I don't think he's ever going to play 70 just off the basis of like, he's injury prone and no team would ever have, a reason to do that if they're a contender. But the point I'm trying to get to, the problem is that like the other big contenders in the East who it's like, okay, their ceiling is pretty high, is Milwaukee and Philadelphia. Dude, I mean, that's in Joel Embiid, who we haven't seen seriously healthy for a playoff run in a while. I mean, he played very good this year. And I think the 76ers are a total wild card in how they look next season with all their cap space and whatnot. And I like Maxey, so I can kind of buy into them, but it's hard for me to say that the injury luck is going to be worse for a Celtics team who has a potentially banged up Porzingis than a 76ers team that has a potentially banged up Embiid. And then it's Milwaukee. And Milwaukee is got to be the oldest team in the NBA in terms of like who their core guys are. Maybe the Clippers barely edge them out, but guess what happens with the Clippers every offseason or every postseason? They get banged up. Same thing with the Bucks. Like Brook Lopez is like 37. Dame is going to be 34. Giannis is 30. Middleton's 32. All of those guys have some sort of injury history, and some like way worse than others. It's just very tough to imagine how they pull it together and stay healthy. I think one thing I really believe is that sometimes with these super teams and these big trades and whatnot, the danger that those guys get themselves into is you just cannot be that old and win a championship. You just cannot roll the dice that many times on an old guy staying healthy. You will lose. There's too many games. It's not like the NFL where sometimes a guy can be banged up and banged up and banged up, and then all of a sudden it's like he's great and you took that risk and it worked out. In the NBA, the sample size is larger for games. You're gonna have to like realize you'll probably lose that dude for a while. And then when you make a super team, I don't know how much this typically matters, but you're also a little bit shallower. So you have a little bit less wiggle room, although I think most teams have no wiggle room to lose any of their like top three players. It's like, okay, well, there isn't some squad out there that could lose a dude like that and be okay, except for this Celtics team, which is what makes them so crazy. So that was kind of my thought on that. I don't know.
I think the Knicks.
Go ahead, Theo.
I think that Knicks might have a shot. I feel like if they could get another all-star caliber player, they have the sort of cohesiveness and maybe depth to rival the Celtics. Like their top,
they could be very physical. It'd be asking a lot from Brunson. They do need another guy, but I agree they could be a good challenger. But I have no idea how their offseason's going to play out. Right now
they have Hartenstein and Anunoby. They would need to keep those guys and add another high-end player, so they'd have to do some serious work.
And I guess if they stay healthy, but the thing is that they also get, I didn't mean to exclude them when I was listing teams in the East. They also, they play a lot of minutes and they were banged up this year. And I know people said, well, it's freak injury. It has nothing to do with the minutes, but sometimes I think those freak injuries are a little bit more likely when you're kind of
like 40 minutes
and getting fatigued. It's like, I think that doesn't, like, I feel like muscle fatigue would make it more likely that somebody like landing on you wrong. I don't know. I'm no doctor, but I don't feel
or if you're just on the field
crazy.
Or on the court more, like you're more likely to get hurt during that
if every minute played is rolling the dice, then they rolled the dice more than anybody. So they're up there. I don't know if anybody in the East. The Pacers gave them a good run. I'd like to see what they do, but I wouldn't put them in that category of really going like super toe to toe. I know they played close, but they didn't. I mean, they got swept, closest sweep of all time. Don't get me wrong, but
you're forgetting a team.
I'm not forgetting them. The Cavs. Maybe.
No,
maybe if Mobley becomes like Wemby.
Mobley was shooting a little bit better this year, if I'm not mistaken. Right? Like.
I feel like there were a little bit times where his range was showing. I don't know what his exact numbers were. I
maybe this was just I was listening to Gab and she was saying that Mobley was shooting better, and
she would know.
There was a stretch when he was really getting going, but I don't know if overall what if his shooting splits are really that crazy. Okay. He was a little bit under 70% free throw, 3-point percentage. Yeah, he's sticking at 28%. He was
okay. Yeah,
that's getting into very non-shooter territory. So
ultimately, I feel like every year, Matt, you're kind of right with the whole how many times do you see a championship?
That's in the playoffs. That's on me.
Oh, hold on. We might.
No, he was shooting 30. Okay, this is more aligned what I thought. He shot 37%, but it was on one attempt a game. So he took 100 threes. And
and he hit like 37.
From what I remember, he was taking them very, very open, which means that he's not really like affecting defenses yet. But it's better than not shooting them at all. So
yeah, if you can hit your open threes, that's a start. But yeah, Matt, I think you're right about the idea that how often does any team win a championship and you're like, yeah, I don't think they could repeat at all next year.
It always feels like they can. Maybe that's just biased from the Cavs Warriors stuff, but
maybe. But also, it's just like the team that wins the championship, like they're the best team. So unless they get drastically worse, you're probably going to expect them to repeat. There's less moving parts
in the NBA than there is the NFL, and I think that's what makes it. And also, the series and games themselves, like. Not the games, but the fact that it's a 7-game series and not a single one makes it more likely that the best team wins if they're healthy. And then it's tough to be like, I think this team is going to get injured.
Right.
It's like, you can't really make that call. So then it's like, if you had to pick who was coming out of the East, you'd go Celtics, no question right now.
Right.
At least.
Yeah. But for as many things that went wrong for them this year, like with, Porzingis,
so
and
nothing.
then you could. Yeah, I guess. For the one thing that went wrong this year, it's like, well, they'll have him back next year. Like, there's just as many things that could go wrong, and then there's just as many things that could go right for
teams.
Right, it's like there's just as many things that could go right for other teams next year.
I do think they'll be back in the finals.
You do?
Mm-hmm. Whether or not they win that series, we'll see. But I think they like I've already said, I think they have a better chance to repeat than anybody since the Warriors did last time. And I think it comes down to injury.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it comes down to who the Spurs add. What it comes down to.
I'll be interested to see how they build out the rest of the team.
I could see people being kind of dying to get in on this whole Wemby thing. If they could grab some disgruntled star, I would want to go to San Antonio immediately, but whatever. What about the Mavericks? Obviously tough L for them. Never really even came close. Not a very good series from Luka at all, really. I expected a lot more from him. Free throw shooting was pretty abysmal over the course of it. He got blown by on defense a lot of the time. His shooting, like from range down the stretch, was also very bad. Like went super cold from 3 for a time. I think that he is good enough to be the best player on a finals winning team. But I do think that him and Kyrie aren't ever going to do it. So what are you going
Kyrie playing poorly in this series and really not like being crazy in these entire playoffs is tough. With Luka, I think it just comes down to stamina, to be honest with you. Like talent-wise, I don't think there's any question. And there's some level of the Mavs still could probably build out their role player room a little bit better, even though it improved greatly. But if we want to just talk about the stars, because those are the only players that matter.
Yes.
Luka down the stretch, kind of just like the Celtics wanted to attack him on defense all the time and burn him out. And that's exactly what they did. And all of a sudden you saw like really bad shooting from him. Shit got ugly late. And then in that game 3, the fouling in the fourth quarter when he was gassed was just unexcusable. And I said it the night it happened, and I don't think it was an overreaction. Trying to draw the charge that got him his 6th was one of the crazier plays we've seen in the finals that anybody has. I said it was the dumbest, like the most boneheaded finals play since JR didn't pass the ball or didn't shoot it. Like it genuinely made no sense to try to do that and pick up your 6. Like, dude, no shit, you're not gonna draw the charge on the perimeter in transition, man. But the only reason he did that is because he just didn't have the
anything
gas
else
and
to
then
do.
Turnaround.
Yeah.
He didn't. Yeah, and like it would have been better to let Brown score there, which is why it was just so bizarre. But to turn around and then complain to the refs about that too was a rough look. And they talked to him, and he stopped. And I get it. You know, it's easy to complain about the refs. I mean, everybody on Twitter does it, right?
Sure.
But there is some level of, you got to be a little bit more locked in on defense. You got to have stamina to deal with teams going at you, because that's what any team is going to want to do. You're not going to be able to avoid that for an entire playoff run, I don't think, where just no team is able to target you and you can be hidden all the time. And there's levels to it. He doesn't need to be a great defender, but And then Kyrie, I think, has to. It definitely has its drawbacks. I wish the Mavericks had another guy who could really put the ball on the floor. And I guess it was sort of supposed to be, well, it was supposed to be Hardaway, but he's so hot, cold. I feel like PJ was supposed to do that stuff a lot, and he did it a little bit, but not nearly as much as you'd want. And I wonder on a winning team, how is like Washington more of a, we have that in the bag, like he can put the ball on the floor and do some stuff in the post type of dude, or is he like just sort? Let me get that back. My fault. My headphones just died.
Happens.
Tough.
But I guess my question with PJ is he the type of guy who you're really going to go to as an offensive option, or is he more just somebody, if the defense puts somebody weak on him, he can put the ball on the floor and get it done a solid amount, and he has some moves in the post when it gets down to that you can rely on it, and he has a little bit more of a bag than just like a straight like quarter three guy, but isn't really somebody you can trust all the time. It's probably going to come down to adding another guy for them.
Oh yeah. And then it was, I agree. Like they're going to need another role player all season, though. I don't think it's going to be like a third all-star. Maybe. I don't know. I don't know enough about the NBA. They just need to get better somehow. So I anticipate they will not be back in the Western in the finals next year, though.
Maybe not. I do think it's funny, the Luka hate, where people are just talking about how he just stole everyone's like little catchphrases or like post award celebrations, like Kevin Garnett's. Like instead of saying anything is possible, he was like,
talking about Tatum?
Did it. Is that not what I said?
You said Luka, I think.
Oh, did I say Luka? I meant Tatum.
Tatum, we did it.
The Tatum, we did it. It was, we did it. And then stealing Kobe's like pose with the trophy, which I guess is a little like,
again, Tatum can't do anything right. Like
that's it's hard. It's a giant trophy. It's like there's no real way to hold that like sitting down without looking like Kobe. And then, but the crazy one is doing both of those and then doing the Kanye. Everyone wanted to know what I would do if we didn't win. I guess we'll never know.
He's just
at the party, like.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
It's funny. I think in that sense, it's like that's silly.
I mean, Twitter always is a little entertaining with what they find to criticize, but Tatum just can't do anything right. We've talked about it before. Everything he does sucks. When he says we did it, it's harassment. When someone else says something, it's flirting. It's.
I saw someone say that
a real take.
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't think it was that cool when Kevin Garnett said anything is possible.
Interesting.
I mean, it's fine. It's a fine moment.
It's fine. It's just like that just didn't like go hard to me. I don't know. Or whenever I see a clip of it, it's not like maybe that Celtics hate, but I'll even it out. I really don't care what Tatum says. He says we did it. I'm not like, Tatum, this is why we hate you, bro. All right. It's like, I don't know. Okay.
They did do it.
That's exactly.
They did do it. I've seen people say that Tatum is Drake of the NBA.
Well, because he's like trying to get these things off. Like, I do understand if you hated the Celtics, how much that would bother you. Because I've never been the biggest Warriors guy as a LeBron guy, obviously. And when Steph Curry was pulling out the night stuff in 22, dude, I was losing my mind, man. It's like, there is just no way that we're trying to make this happen, dude.
But
But in reality, like, does it matter at all? Not really.
Yes,
with the Tatum
it
stuff,
does.
I'm just not riled up about Tatum.
Right.
I'm just not. So, shout out to him. I'm sure. I'd wonder how much he cares. I don't think I would care if I was him. And I had my championship and I had my millions of dollars.
That's what I'm saying. Like super rich dude with a championship. Yeah. Gets to play
Why
basketball.
does his son have so much aura? That's my question. Like Deuce comes in and like he saves Tatum's post game aura to me.
He's
like,
one of the most well known player kids ever. I feel like, right?
Yeah, he is. Like
he's super. Like Deuce Tatum is so relevant.
He is so relevant.
And he's been relevant for years, man. Steph Curry's kids were kind of the same way, but like they did not have this. They did not have this longevity whatsoever.
Dude, Deuce Tatum was in the locker room like posing with the champagne after, like with Tatum. Who gave him that? They're like spraying him with it. It's like, get this kid out of here. He's like 6.
How old is Deuce Tatum? Is he 6? I feel like he's younger than that.
Maybe Deuce Tatum age. He was born in 2017. He's 6.
Wow.
He like how is he? He's always around.
He's always around. Fair enough.
He does have like a lot of drip for a little kid, though. I don't know. Like
it's probably because of his rich dad. I'd guess
it probably is, but he does a good job. I don't know. He does a good job picking out his outfits.
How many kids of NBA players are out here with just like horrible outfits?
I don't know. But yeah, I guess that's Tatum's like calling card is he should focus less on saying his own thing and just him and Deuce being the duo, because I feel like that's got the most.
How long before Jason Tatum drops a rap?
The highest approval rating from Twitter is his kid.
How long before Tatum drops a rap album, man?
Why? Never. Why would he do that?
I just feel like it's. I feel like it's something he would do. Maybe R&B I could see. Like
I don't think so.
Little Weekend-esque.
The Weekend.
Yeah, man.
I'm waiting for Christoph Porzingis's like Latvian club DJ set.
You know, can I? Here's my take on it. People get so mad when an NBA player is like a little corny, or they do corny stuff.
Yeah.
And I get that, but I feel like I've come to realize that like that just makes me feel like they're just like a guy. You know, it's like, okay, this is just some dude. You know, that feels like most people.
It's hard to be cool all the time. It really is impossible.
It doesn't. First off, you're being watched all the time. Nobody is going to do cool stuff 24/7. The expectation's impossible, and the social media era is just like too much. But I feel like, you know, basketball, being a great basketball player is cool, but basketball talent and skill and the work ethic it takes to become that guy doesn't necessarily like overlap circle Venn diagram with like also being like a badass guy on top of that. Like you can just be like there's how many different types of guys are there in the NBA? Plenty, you know? It's like Miles Turner like messes with Legos big time. It's like
and then they're all like, just hyper competitive.
It's like some alpha people dudes. Right, it's like some people out there like Legos, and some people out there are in the NBA. Why wouldn't there be a crossover? But the people get like mad at them. They're like, "You idiot!"
Yeah, I don't know. But that'll probably do it for this episode, huh?
Yeah, I'm hearing like fireworks outside, or at least I think it's fireworks. I can't quite tell, but it sounds like fireworks. So maybe I'll go investigate. But yeah, thank you all so much for tuning in to another episode of Stay Hot. We've got a lot of fun stuff on the horizon here. We're getting through the thick of June, and then once we hit July, we'll get into our season predictions more so. But until then, and until next time, as always, we will catch you on the flippity flip.